Lawrence Still here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, the podcast where we provide you with the tools, the tactics, and the strategies to help you grow your high intensity strength training business. Get more members for your hit business when you download our free resources over at highintensitybusiness.com/free. You'll get resource PDFs, including 10 tips to get more clients, how to attract and retain great trainers, high converting strength training sales presentation, business plan templates, and much, much more. Again, get those over at highintensitybusiness.com/free. This is episode 401, and the topic of today's episode is how to pivot your business model. And today's guest to discuss that with me is founder and CEO of Discover Strength, Luke Carlson. Luke, welcome back to the show.
Lawrence, thanks for having me, and thank you for doing a great podcast. I think about all the podcasts I listen to, and when your podcast drops, it's the first one I listen to that day. And thank you for what you do for our community. I mean, I love not just the podcast, but when you do the happy hours every month with the membership. I love getting to connect to other hit business professionals worldwide, and you've created that community. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's a huge compliment coming from you. So I thought, I just thought I'd set the scene with this one before we get into it. So I've been obviously working with, a client I mentioned to you at the start before we got recording. And one of the major constraints that they identified in their growth and achieving their vision of their business is their existing business model. And to elaborate on that, what I mean is, in terms of the product, in terms of the length of session, frequency of sessions, etc. And it certainly got me thinking that there's probably a lot of businesses in our space who have a model, but if they really want to achieve what they want to achieve and create a more profitable, successful business, they should consider pivoting. Now, depending if a pivot or transition is small or large, could mean more or less complexity. Like, for example, if you're going from, a lot of our colleagues do private training, right, where they just have one client in studio at any one time, and obviously, if you have more than one client in the studio at any one time, you're going to generate more revenue, more profit. And so I think, certainly there's colleagues of ours who I know are open to that now. But then when you think about, okay, what does that transition look like? It might not be too complex. Sure, there's always going to be some complexity, but that might just simply mean, okay, expand the schedule, right? Allow trainers to book sessions, in line with other sessions. Or concurrently, I should say, update the training SOP, how you operate, multiple trainers on the floor, communicate to the client base, whatever. Maybe there's more steps, but those are the first things that come to mind. This pivot that I guess was the catalyst for this conversation was a little bit more of a bigger shift than that. And so this particular client wants to go from 20-minute sessions once a week, so call that 3 sessions an hour, to moving to 30-minute sessions 4, 6, 8 times a month, which is far more congruent with their vision. And this does seem like a bigger project than the aforementioned, with much more complexity, and that can be very overwhelming. And I guess, what really inspired this particular business to consider this move and execute on it is the following things. So obviously, if you have more time per session, you have more workout variety and novelty, which we know is important for client retention. You have better results, right? Of more volume, which is probably going to again improve retention. More time to build rapport, more time to generate referrals and build relationships. And obviously, with that plus more frequency, you're looking at both better results and significantly more revenue and profit. So that's the motivation for those that are curious. And also, with this move, this particular client intends to make a significant price increase in tandem. This is a good opportunity to obviously do that and make sure they're priced appropriately for the 30-minute session. So, big introduction. And the next thing I want to go into is just talking about, I guess, how one goes about making that transition. And with this particular client, they got very overwhelmed by the enormity of this. And so my reaction was, well, okay, look, don't eat the elephant, break it down. I create a whole plan. And we had this, I threw out like 10 potential tasks that could be involved in the completion of this. And then it was just about obviously looking at that plan and creating timescales for each task so that you can kind of order them appropriately, delegate them out to the team, and then suddenly it becomes far more feasible. But before I go any further, I'm going to stop there. And I want to know how you think about this. And I guess the goal of this, Luke, is to give the listeners principles and tactics that they can use to do any kind of pivot they might need to do, or any sort of change management in their business. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love the topic. This is awesome. Can't wait to get into it. I think maybe just in terms of terminology, we're talking about a business model change, but let's not get too dialed in on that terminology, business model. Let's just say we're making a shift, we're making a change. The actual definition of business model, those definitions are varied. So let's not hang on to those words. We're talking about how do we make a change? How do we make it relevant to our consumer? How do we get our staff on board? Whether the change is small, whether it's large, whether it's seemingly small, but it's going to have longer term, revenue generating benefits. I think that's really what we're discussing. My starting point for that would be, do we need to make a change? Do we need to make a pivot? Or are we assuming that the grass is greener somewhere else? Do I want to make a change because I'm bored? Do I want to make a change because I've heard other people are doing this, other businesses are doing, something like this? And maybe just as important, have I heard complaints from customers? Have I heard complaints from our staff, from customers? And then we say things like, all of our clients are saying this. And when you count how many clients have actually said it, it's 2 clients of your 82 clients. And then lastly, is there data to support this? Is there data to support that the move could increase value for the customer and drive revenue or profitable revenue for the business? And when I say, is there data, it could be something as simple as, do a high percentage of our customers, have they stated that, that there's some type of complaint or issue, or they would see value in something else. Data also means relative to my market. And maybe this is the second question, right? The first question is, do we really need to do this? Or am I just distracted, bored, assume the grass is greener, distracted by something shiny? But does the marketplace allow it? So we look at what's in the marketplace in fitness. Now, we who listen to your podcast, we sometimes think that, we're in this world of high intensity training and everyone's either doing a 20-minute or a 30-minute workout. Some people are doing 15 minutes. Some people are using Medic. Some people have some old Nautilus. That is not the market, right? The market is boutique studio fitness. It's discretionary spend on fitness. And through 2018, 19 into 2020, it was dominated by group high intensity interval type training. I would call it just getting sweaty in a room together, right? So whether this was rowing or Orange Theory or F45 or Barry's Boot Camp, it was get sweaty in a room together. Picture 20 people doing something, getting sweaty in a room together. There's still, of course, health clubs, higher end, and there's health clubs that are lower end, and the lower end health clubs are expanding rapidly. What we have to think about is, do we compete with any of those get sweaty boutique models, or are we competing with other personal training models? And what does personal training mean? Personal training largely means one trainer working with one person up to working with about 6 people. So the market largely dictates what you could pivot into. Now, we can fast forward through all that because everyone listening to your podcast is in a wonderful position that almost nobody in the marketplace is doing what we're doing. Now, you may think they all are doing it because, our friends and colleagues are doing it, but they're not doing it. So if you are doing a one-on-one 30-minute, one-on-one 20 minutes, any type of resistance training, let alone high intensity resistance training or somewhat evidence-based approach, then you are very, very, very differentiated from the rest of the marketplace. But that is always the second question. I feel so bad for all of these concepts, these fitness studio concepts that are launching, that are basically get sweaty in a room with 20 people. Guess where our avatar is? A 30-year-old, female. Great. We're all going after the same 30-year-old female getting sweaty in a room. So if we need just a pause point to kind of celebrate and say we're on the right track, it's in a crowded marketplace, I think we're absolutely doing the right thing. Let's combine that with the market research that says for the first time ever, strength training, resistance exercise has been considered the top trend in 2023. So we know that the consumer is into strength training. We did not say that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, everyone said, man, my customer really just wants to do cardio. It's tough to compel somebody to do strength training, right? We are doing something that people are just getting pounded nonstop. 2 days ago, Washington Post, huge article on why strength training is more important than aerobic exercise, all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease risk, cancer disease risk. There's a great meta-analysis that they basically summarized. A week before that, we all saw the paper that James Steele published that the Washington Post picked up and said, here's the 6 exercises you need to do. And of course, that came from longitudinal data from Fit20. So the marketplace knows we need to strength train. So the second consideration is, are we thinking about the market? And then for your listeners who are very much into EOS or attraction model, we think about strategic niche, right? Strategic niche is just, well, what business are you in? What's the sandbox that you're playing in? So now we're getting a little bit more nuanced. Does this change in our business model require that we change our strategic niche? And I think for, this kind of hypothetical that you're bringing up with this client of yours, Lawrence, their strategic niche is not changing. I mean, I think they're in a strategic niche of something about safe strength training or personalized strength training or one-on-one strength training. I don't think that niche is changing. I just think they're changing the length of the session. So we have to think, does the change in business model mean a change in strategic niche? Are we getting into a different core business? That might be it. The second one is, does the market support this change? And the third one is there any data that I actually need to change, or do I want to change because the grass is greener, I'm bored, et cetera, et cetera? Okay, now we've decided we are going to change. I think the first thing we have to think about is, does the change erode anything that I was previously teaching? Now we're getting really nuanced into the case study that you have here. Did we tell a client that 20 minutes was the magical duration of strength training, and as soon as we tip over to 21 minutes, you're going to see diminished returns, and that 30 minutes was chronic overtraining or overreaching? Did we say those things? Because I've worked with so many consultants and purchased so many things and service businesses where their model changed, and what they changed to actually contradicted what they previously taught me. And they sold me on what they previously taught me. And so if they can't manage that change or explain the why of why we're actually changing this, I'm going to lose trust in that service provider. And let's just back up. This case study that we're going through, it is all about trusting the professional in front of us. Okay, so that's what a service business is. A service business is, you are not selling pizzas, you are selling people. Right. And so if your people aren't credible, if the people's message changed, we better be able to explain that. And I always talk about giving a mediocre workout from a mediocre trainer is like selling a Pizza Hut pizza, a Domino's pizza, and you forgot to put cheese on it. Right. So if that trainer is mediocre and they've been with you for 3 months and they're giving 3 months of mediocre workouts, that means your Domino's pizza franchise just delivered 3,000 pizzas and you forgot to put cheese on it. Or if you're a fan of Christmas movies and you've seen the movie Elf with Will Ferrell, at the beginning of the movie, James Caan's character, he's a book publisher. He's publishing children's books, and he realizes there's a couple pages missing in that book, and he says, ship it anyways, right? That's the product. It's defective. Our personal trainer being defective is analogous to that in a service business. So can that service provider, who we have to trust, explain why we're making the change? And of course, I think from a 20 to 30 minute change, I think we can. Now, when we're making that change, I think it has to be, can we explain it in a way that demonstrates the value for the customer? The mistake we all make is we talk about why we're doing it internally. And we even say things like, start with why. Why are we doing this? And we get esoteric and we're inspired by Simon Sinek. But if that why is not relevant to our customer, we probably shouldn't share it in this case. So you have to be able to make a case of the value to the customer. Hey, we're switching from 20 minutes to 30 minutes in this case. And here's how I think it's going to benefit you. And Lawrence, you know this as well as anyone. You can't provide 10 benefits. You have to provide 3 benefits. As soon as you provide 10 benefits, the customer's like, you're just listing, a bunch of bullshit, bullet items. They can't process it. It almost sounds too good to be true. It's not believable. They stop paying attention. So pick the 3 reasons why you're switching to the 30 minutes in this particular case. The 3 areas of value created for the customer. And I think those are very easy to come up with. If it's me, this is literally off the top of my head, I would say, there's so much research from one of our favorite researchers, Brad Schoenfeld, that says we probably have to get a certain amount of volume in per week for a muscle compartment, for a muscle group to maximize strength and hypertrophy. Interestingly enough, it doesn't matter if it's in 3 workouts or 6 workouts. we'd like to move you to 2 workouts and just increase it from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. That allow us to get a few more exercises, a few more sets in, a few more, or a little bit more time under tension as a whole. We think that's really going to allow you to move toward maximizing your benefit. If you're here 30 minutes, hey, it's 10 more minutes, and I think there's going to be that much more. Boom. Okay, that's reason number one. That's rational number one. Just as I was saying that, I was convinced by it. That's number one. So you have to be able to come up with those. And of course, internally, you have some other reasons, right? You have some scheduling reasons, and you have, how do we fill the studio, and how are we competing with the rest of our competitors? And is it believable to the marketplace that a 20-minute workout could be effective? 30 minutes sounds maybe more effective or plausible, but it also sounds really doable and really efficient for the customer. Don't share your internal stuff, share value to the customer.
Just one point on that. So is the kind of, underlying message when you say, hey, the new evidence suggests that this could be more effective for you, et cetera, you're kind of saying, hey, you could be saying, we follow the evidence. We look at, and this is going to change over time, and we are changing our business to be in line with that to deliver maximum value, which is a way I feel a good way of communicating that to retain trust.
100%. Okay. Absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah, and then I would use simple terminology. Whether or not I would say value, I would say I think you're going to get better results, and here's why. And say, yep, we're using the evidence, but we're not just using the evidence because we're enamored with evidence. We're using evidence because we're convinced it's going to drive better results for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So after that, what's the next step in your mind?
So after that, we've picked, the 3 things we're going to communicate in terms of how it's adding value to the customer. Then we have to, and this is probably in concert. I mean, this has to happen before we're actually communicating. We have to get our team on board, right? This can't be the owner, maybe having a conversation with you, or the owner just kind of on a clarity break, thinking this up and then announcing it. They have to get buy-in from the team. Because remember, your team has been teaching this stuff for so long. Your team's bought into it themselves. And so the team has to believe in those 3 areas of value that you're providing to the customer. They also have to understand all of the internal reasons why you're doing this, how it positively impacts the business. And of course, this impacts all change management. But let's use an example that's going to apply in this case. If you're going to increase prices, we have to go through the mindset of a price increase. We probably have 15 bullets that we walk through and we increase prices. So all of our trainers understand why increasing prices is the right thing to do. So, we go through bullets like, we're not trying to be the lowest cost operator. We're trying to be a luxury high-end product. If we want our brand to be high-end, we need to price ourselves accordingly. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, keynote speaker at REC this year, Dr. Brian Williams. He told me in my car many years ago, he said, there is no nobility in undervaluing yourself. Okay, full stop. So that should speak to you. That should inspire you. The next bullet we always share with all of our trainers is every client you work with is among the best attorney, the best physician, the best accountant, the best consultant in our market. They charge a premium for what they do because they are masters of their craft and they don't feel shy about what they charge. You are also a master of your craft. You should not be shy about what you charge, right? That's the next one. Next one is, so that's our list, right? So
I love it.
We need to make sure our staff understands why we're increasing prices. And then the last one that I always include is, this is your price increase. This is not my price increase. We're increasing prices and you get paid more. Of course, our business is going to make more money too, but the best way for our trainers to make more money is increasing prices. So I say this verbatim. I say, so when that customer says to you, oh, you increase prices, Luke must want a new car, and many of the customers, of course, have never met me. Your mindset should be, no. I increase the prices because I'm worth more, right? And of course, they're not going to say that, but that has to be your mentality. There's not like a scary man in an office somewhere that increased prices. You increase prices, and I had to give you the nudge to do it because I know that you're worth it, and the brand is worth it. But yeah, so the team internally has to be on board. Now,
can I just make one guess on another bullet, which I think is really important, is the idea that the higher the price, the more positive emotion they experience when they purchase it, and the better results they're going to get. This is the epiphany. I don't know whether this is obvious to a lot of my listeners, but I shared it with a couple of our close colleagues, and they were like, Man, that's profound. And basically what I said is, if people are more motivated by spending more, by paying higher prices, if they get better results, what could be more important than being highly priced, than being a high priced, high intensity training service provider? Because we're asking people to go to failure, for Christ's sake, you know? Like, do you think, like, if you want your clients to get good results, you want them to go to failure, you need to charge more to create that motivation.
You charge $20 for a 30-minute workout. And if people bring a half-assed effort, they're like,
Right.
the big deal is $20. You charge $70 for that 30-minute workout. They know, God, I'm paying $70 for this. I got to be all in. And that applies to everything. You know, the consultant we use for our process, you know, that I've used for 8 years, that consultant now charges $8,000 a day. And, you know, my team, every once in a while, we look at our expenses and we say, should we keep paying $8,000 a day? Now, we meet with them once or one day in duration, once a quarter, and then our annual offsite's 2 days, so it's $16,000. And what I say to our team over and over is, we're paying $8,000, and I think it forces us to bring our best because we know we're paying $8,000. And that sounds, on some levels, it sounds silly. It's like you can't try hard unless you know you're forking out $8,000. But it brings our best, or it forces us, it compels us to bring our best. So I agree with that in every service, in every product. We value it more when it's priced higher. So that's on the list as well, for sure. So this whole conversation is, this part of the conversation is about getting the team on board. They have to buy in. So if your team's 2 or 3 people, you have to have the conversations and they have to weigh in and talk it through, and you have to be able to win them over so they understand, why do we need to make this business model change? Whatever business model change you make, it's not, did you make the right change? It's, did you make the change right? So you can pivot to almost anything and it's going to work. It's after you decide that you're going to pivot to it, are you committed to executing on it? So during this, getting people on the same page, getting people on board, we should allow them to weigh in. They should disagree with us. At the end of the day, they have to commit to the decision that's made. They might even disagree with certain parts of it, right? And that's okay if they do disagree with it. I just heard a wonderful speaker say, if at least half the room doesn't disagree with you, right, the decision really wasn't a very important decision. On every important decision, at least half the room should disagree with you. And if everyone agrees, you probably just procrastinated a big strategic decision too long until it was a very obvious tactical decision. And it's tough to really have a successful business if you're procrastinating the big strategic issues. So if you have some disagreement, that's okay. When the meeting's over, when the discussion is over, we have to all move forward and commit to running the play and executing on this new direction.
Yeah. And if half the room disagree, you got to kind of be a dictator at some point and kind of say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. And I now remind our team is, hey, if this is a big decision, half of us should disagree. We are not looking for consensus. And if we ever have consensus, it's a sign of 2 things. One primary, and the other is just a symptom of that, is we are procrastinating strategic decisions. We're waiting too long. If it becomes obvious to everybody in the room, let's wait 2 more years and then we make the decision. That's by definition no longer a strategic decision. That's just now a tactical decision, which was a previous strategic decision that you just procrastinated. So people should disagree.
Yeah. If like you said, 50% disagree, could that not be a problem in terms of, if they don't believe in it, maybe they don't buy into the change and therefore they don't deliver great sessions, and you could end up with, a real performance issue there?
Yeah, what I'm saying, Lawrence, is early on, 50% should disagree. After you have all the conversation, you're going to win some of them over. And then eventually you're going to say, hey, whether or not you agree or disagree with this, now we got to run the play. And I use the same analogy over and over and over, but I think about, we're 10 days away from the Super Bowl here in the US. And I think about American football. A successful play in football is not, did we call the perfect play? It's not about calling the perfect play. It's, do all 11 guys on the offense run the play, perfectly, or do all 11 guys execute on the play that was called? And those 11 guys, as they break the huddle and come up to the line of scrimmage, 9 of them might disagree with the play that was called. That doesn't even matter if they disagree with it. It's, do they run the play correctly? And then when they have success and the play works, they feel like, well, I have more trust and confidence in that play that was called. So it's more about our execution. It's more about making the decision right than making the right decision. Even if we make the right decision and we don't execute it well, and we're not all on board with it, we're going to have poor results.
Got it. Okay.
And
awesome.
let's just make sure we zoom out for a second. I think that quote by this just absolute brilliant speaker, where he says half the room's got to disagree with you. He's not saying it for dramatic effect entirely, but don't feel like it has to be literally 50% disagreeing with you. The point is if everyone agrees with everything that you're saying, all these decisions, you're probably too slow of a decision maker. You should be bringing things up to your team saying, we got to pivot now. We got to change this. I think we need to do this. We need to increase prices. And some of the rooms should be like, absolutely not. That's where in every boardroom, in every meeting room of successful companies, in every industry around the world, that's what's going on. That's what needs to go on. If you feel like you have a healthy team because you all agree, you're just procrastinating key decisions. And that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about change management and making big decisions and how do we implement those decisions. So don't feel like to make this change, everyone needs to be on board. And if everyone's not on board and you continue to wait, you might wait 2.5 years or 4 years and you're irrelevant by that point.
Got it. All right. Totally agree with that. And what ironic. And what's next?
Okay, Lawrence, that might be all I have.
Okay, cool.
So my summary was, do we need to do this? Does the market support this? Do I need to change the strategic niche? That's the starting point. And then in concert, we are communicating with our clients around value. And in concert, we're having a conversation with our teams, and our teams are buying in. And of course, our teams are supporting all of this on the floor. And then from there, now the execution, okay, if there's a next step, it's execution. It's, are we updating our systems and our core processes? So we talk about what's a 30-minute workout look like. And I think the core process should be as nuanced as what happens if you finish in 27 minutes? In 27 minutes, does the client leave? Or do you say, we can do one more exercise? Or are you trying to make the workout 25 minutes long in a 30-minute workout? We have all different perspectives on this in the HIT community. Let me just give you two ends of the spectrum, and I'll tell you where I fall. And I'm not suggesting that I'm right at all, but a 30-minute workout, try to get done in about 24 minutes, 25 minutes. You have a little bit of time at the beginning and the end so that you can greet the person and that you can schedule the person potentially for their next workout or take care of anything like that. Then you have just a little bit of transition moving to the next client. Maybe a client's a minute late or you run a minute over. That's one end of the spectrum. The end of the spectrum is it's a 30-minute workout. You should be exercising with the client for 29 minutes and 59 seconds. And that's where I fall, is we want the entire workout to be absolutely jam-packed to the very end, and the clock is striking the top of the hour or the half hour, and you're on to the other client, and there's very little transition. And the mindset there is you're ordering the ice cream cone from us, and we're going to scoop that sucker so incredibly high. And I picture going to the Minnesota State Fair, and the most profitable food stand there is Sweet Martha's Cookies. And you get a bucket of these warm mini chocolate chip cookies, and they pile them so high that it's mounded over the top. They're just trying to pour in more cookies. And that's our mindset, is we're not going to cut a corner. We want to give you as much value as possible. We're going to optimize all 30 minutes. Now, that's not necessarily right. You can make a compelling argument for 24 minutes in the 30-minute session. I think the client says, I feel like I'm losing out on something here. It drives me absolutely bananas when I schedule a 60-minute massage, which I do every single month. And I know the massage is like 50 minutes long. And I get done with it and they're like, okay, our time is done today. And, they leave the room and I'm thinking, I got 8 minutes left on the hour. This is just 8 minutes where, I don't know if you're planning on me needing to change that long or what it is or how they turn rooms. It just drives me crazy. It's an hour massage. Why are you actually massaging me for about 49 minutes? It drives me crazy.
I love that. Now, look, I don't know if this is again, top secret franchise info, so stop me if it is. But I'm very curious, if you're working up to the hour, let's say, is it simply a matter of that client hits muscle failure, they finish that last exercise and it's like, Steve, great job today. I'll see you next week, or I'll see you on your next session. If you need to reschedule, talk to concierge. I'm going to just go to my next appointment. Is it as simple as that? Or I'm just curious what that transition looks like.
Yeah, it's that quick. The transition usually also involves a recap of how they did. Last exercise is done. They set it down. They say, hey, Steve, thank you so much. You did 11 exercises today. You actually improved on 9 of the 11, and the other 2, you stayed the same, which were improvements last time. Not only was your intensity awesome, but you actually had tremendous improvement throughout the workout. Have a great Friday. Thank you so much. And then boom, out of there.
And they might still be in the studio, obviously, because they're still like just destroyed and they're recovering.
They're
might still
going
be
to go sit
hanging
down
around.
and catch their breath for a second and, slowly put on a winter coat and make their way out. But you're on to the next one. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I know that sounds straightforward, but I'm just always curious about the details. Luke, this has been phenomenal. I feel like, I know we talked about execution very briefly there, but is it simply a matter of looking at, once you've gone through those steps you talked about, it's simply a matter of breaking down, all of the things that need to be done. Like you said, reviewing SOPs and systems, talking in detail about all of the potential things you need to think about when moving to a longer session and all the different, and I guess some of it you won't know till rubber hits road, right? You'll learn a lot when you implement, and there's got to be a little bit of courage there. Is there any reason to rifle shot with something like this? Again, maybe it depends on the change.
Well, let me just say one other tactical, I think best practice. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I think a lot of service providers do this wrong. And again, this is just my opinion. I think when you make a change like this, you have to make the wholesale change across the entire brand and your whole customer base. I think the biggest mistake I see in this is we're so connected to our clients and we know our clients so well that we introduce change, but we only introduce it for new clients. And then the change doesn't have much of an impact. So a price increase, if you're listening to this, and you take nothing else out of this podcast, if you increase prices, do not grandfather your current customers in at the old price and then only increase prices for new people, because then you're having your new clients subsidize your underpaying current clients. And that's not going to change your revenue very much. So you have to make these changes, in my opinion, for your entire client base. A price increase, a change in workout duration. And I know our clients, the clients that we all work with, you've sold them on 20-minute workouts. You're going to announce this. And if you don't announce it the right way, or even if you do announce it the right way, you're going to have a client that says, I'm going to stick with 20 minutes. You have to say, nope, it's going to 30 minutes for everyone and the price is going up. And they're going to say, nope, I would like to go 20 minutes and have the old price. And that is not an option. I think you have to change it across the entire brand, and you have to position it as, we know what's best for you from an exercise prescription standpoint. And then, of course, for the brand itself, for you, for the company, if you're going to increase prices, for example, if you think it's a good decision, it's go ahead and scale it. And scale in this case means your entire customer base has to have that increased price, longer session, more frequency, whatever it is.
Essentially, you're making that communication and you're being clear where the cutover date is. There's like a clear cutover date. Maybe it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then it's like, execute. Get everything in place, get it ready for that date, which is a great force function, right? That's very effective in getting the team to get the job done. And then there's a clear expectation, and then the whole business is moving over. There is no, we're working with this cohort or just the new clients or whatever. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And in that way, I like to think about service businesses as businesses that are focused on products, right? When I, buy a skim mocha from Starbucks, and the price goes up, it goes up for every customer. They didn't say, hey, Luke, you've been buying a mocha one a day, every day for the last 9 years. We're going to keep you at the same price. The price goes up for everybody. And so now I understand service businesses and product-based businesses have their differences. In that instance, I think we should treat them the same. And you heard me say before, in a service business, your people are the product. And so I think there's more similarities than we sometimes realize.
Great point. Thank you so much, Luke. This has been just amazing as always. I've learned so much. And I think this is really going to help a lot of the listeners, and especially this client that we've been talking about, who I know is going to be excited for this. So just before you go, just to let everyone know, please come to resistanceexerciseconference.com. I will be there. It's just over a month away in Minneapolis. I'm super excited. I've got all my flights booked, hotels, everything. Lots going on. So excited for that. And obviously, if they want to learn more about you and Discover Strength, it's discoverstrength.com. And if they want to learn about the franchise, discoverstrengthfranchise.com. Correct? Have I missed anything?
All those are great. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
Of course. And for everyone listening, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube. This video will be on YouTube now as well. And again, to get more members for your hit business, when you download our free resources over at highintensitybusiness.com/free, you get resource PDFs, including 10 tips to get more clients and how to attract and retain great trainers, courtesy of Luke and his team, high converting strength training sales presentations, business plan templates, and much more. highintensitybusiness.com/free. And to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search episode 400. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.